Dr. Max at Maximal Wellness, teaching practical ways to live a fuller, healthier life. This is April, and we're talking about Irritable Bowel Syndrome awareness, IBS. So IBS is a condition that affects some estimates say between 5 and 10% of the entire world. Many millions of Americans deal with symptoms of IBS. Bloating, cramping, digestive pain. The classic symptoms are constipation or diarrhea, or alternating constipation and diarrhea. It can be really miserable for a lot of people. I wanted to talk about some things that you can do on your own this month to help manage some of your symptoms. The first thing you can do is try to identify if there are any foods that are triggers for you. A lot of my patients have become sensitive to gluten, dairy, seeds, nuts over time because the American diet is so processed. Everything has so much pesticides, heavy metals, what have you on it. It puts a lot of stress on our digestive system. It's really hard to break that down and can create a lot of inflammation in the gut. Another thing that's a problem is because we tend to rely a lot on antibiotics to kill off infections, which, don't get me wrong, is very important when you have an infection to kill it off. That over-reliance on antibiotics means that we're not just wiping out the infection, we're also wiping out our microbiome. All of the bacteria, fungi, viruses, what have you, everything that makes us in our digestive system is also wiped out. The good, the bad, the ugly. And a lot of Americans don't replace those good microbes with things like pre and probiotics. So this is what we call a dysbiosis. So a dysbiosis is when the body starts to create this inflammation and response to normal bacteria and microbes that are already present in the gut. In the optimal environments, the body will have a relatively muted response to that because, don't get me wrong, the immune system is constantly vigilant and it's always sampling whatever goes through your digestive tract in order to see if there is a pathogen, a heavy metal, some sort of infection, something that it has to be aware of in order to fight off and get rid of it. But when the gut becomes really dysbiotic and we're eating a lot of foods that cause inflammation, suddenly we get all those symptoms: cramping, gas, bloating. So the first thing you need to do is make sure you're taking away some of those foods that you might be sensitive to for a while, and then helping to improve your digestion and repair the lining of the gut. With most of my patients who have IBS, they end up developing what we call intestinal permeability or leaky gut. You can see on the left side is a nice healthy gut lining with a nice thick gel layer. The cells are nice and healthy. The junctions between the cells are they're watertight and they're sealed. But when you have a dysbiosis, when you're eating a lot of inflammatory processed foods, when you have a lot of infections, that mucosal layer can be degraded and you can actually develop inflammation in the lining of the gut, which can create little holes in between the intestinal cells. So suddenly, instead of being watertight, they've got little holes. What happens then is microbes, undigested food, heavy metals, pesticides, they all get past the lining of the intestines down here where your immune system, those white blood cells, are always sampling things, and they treat those things like an invader. So suddenly you have these gluten proteins getting down there. The immune system sees them, becomes hypersensitive to things like gluten, and now anytime you have wheat, barley, rye, beer, things like that, your body will create inflammation, bloating, gas, cramping, pain. That can become an even bigger issue over time if you don't get that addressed, because eventually you're not just going to have leaky gut. Your body's going to develop ulceration in the lining of your intestines. You know what that means? Bleeding. That means there's literally holes in your intestines. There are two major diagnoses when that happens. It's called inflammatory bowel disease. One of them is Crohn's disease, and one of them is ulcerative colitis. Crohn's means there's patches of ulceration and inflammation throughout the intestines. Ulcerative colitis means it's largely in the colon, the large intestine, but it can be anywhere from the mouth all the way down to the end of the digestive tract. So when I have patients with IBD, it's really important we try to get at the root cause of what we're dealing with. So I've developed this 6-month program to work with my patients to figure out why is it that they're developing ulcers and having blood in the stool and so much gas, cramping, and pain. What we do is we have the patient come in, we get a baseline reading, like a 7-day food journal to see what foods they're already eating. I want to see if they've already been diagnosed with inflammatory bowel disease, Crohn's and colitis, because if not, we want to get some labs to see if that's what we're dealing with, so we can rule that out. Then we're also going to get a stool sample to see what sort of microbes are in the gut, because in my experience, the vast majority of people with these inflammatory bowel diseases, this autoimmune condition, have some sort of chronic occult infection that hasn't been dealt with yet. So if we can figure out what sort of microbes we're dealing with, that helps to educate us and determine how we can get you feeling better. The mainstream medical model will want to put you on a bunch of prescription drugs that will calm down inflammation but won't treat the root cause. So you may feel good for a while, but symptoms can just continue to get worse and worse and worse over time. My goal here with my 6-month program is to get to the root of the problem, actually heal the lining of the gut, and get you feeling better so that you can eat more of those foods you love, with the education that maybe there are a couple things you should just stay away from in the future. Along with that, there are a few foundational things I like to do with my patients. Some things that are very beneficial for everybody with IBD and IBS. One is a multivitamin and mineral. Our soil is really degraded due to poor farming practices, and now you have to eat 2 apples for every 1 apple our grandparents ate just to get the same amount of nutrition. When you have IBS, IBD, you're not digesting and assimilating nutrients anyway. The digestive system's inflamed, so a multivitamin and mineral can be your basic insurance policy to cover your bases. Another really powerful one is vitamin D. I recommend this for all my patients with IBS, IBD, because vitamin D helps to calm down inflammation in the white blood cells in your intestinal lining. When I was in grad school, I did my capstone thesis project on the effect of vitamin D and how it can calm down inflammation in the white blood cells, the ones that are sampling all of those things and creating inflammation in the first place. Vitamin D helps to shut down that process and allows them to tolerate things like foods. You're going to want a really high potency omega-3 fat. This is a fish oil, but it's super concentrated, very potent, with the 2 active ingredients, EPA and DHA. You want those 2 forms, they're the long chain fats, because those are the ones the human body actually uses. The plant-based ones like walnuts, flax, hemp, they'll be helpful, but you'll only be able to utilize about 5 to 7% of it. If you need a vegetarian option, you can use algae oil, which is how the fish get that, but I usually have people take a fish oil unless there's some sort of problem with fish. The last thing I'm going to have them take is something like a boswellia complex. Boswellia is the Latin name for frankincense, very anti-inflammatory, very good for the digestive system. There's no real contraindications to taking it. I give it to just about anybody with arthritis, digestive pain, inflammatory bowel disease. Very helpful for that. This one is lipophilic, meaning it's fat-loving, so you'll absorb about 5 times more of it if you take it with a fat like a fish oil. So those are the foundational things. During my 6-month program, the first phase is we're trying to identify what we're dealing with and clearing out the infection. So the first thing we do is something like Biociden's BioClear program. This is an antimicrobial that will kill off the infection, and it contains a binder, GI Detox Plus, which will help to bind up all of those dead microbes and make sure they get out in the stool. Because if you kill off an infection, it's going to release all of this waste product, and you want to bind them up so that you don't continue to absorb it back into your bloodstream or your lymph. It's also going to contain a probiotic to help support the healing of the gut and try to get that process going. After a few months of an elimination style diet, at least for the things that are causing you inflammation, we're eradicating that infection. We're going to do that at first to try and calm down inflammation so we can get you to a baseline. The second phase of the program is to help to rebuild the lining of the intestine. For this, I'd like to rely on Microbiome Lab's Total Gut Restoration. This looks intimidating, but it's really very simple. Along with an anti-inflammatory, nutrient-dense diet that you'll be doing with my program, it's a Paleo-Mediterranean diet. The Total Gut Restoration is going to help to bolster the good microbes in your gut with Megaspore Biotic. This is a combination of 5 different bacterial strains that have been researched to promote a healthy digestive lining. For a lot of my patients with IBD, You'll hear people talk about taking a probiotic yeast too, but one of the defining characteristics of inflammatory bowel disease is an autoimmune inflammation reaction to certain probiotic yeasts. So that's why I prefer this one, because it doesn't have a yeast in there, so we can just sidestep that. The second step, mega prebiotic. This helps to feed the good bacteria that are now present in your gut lining, help to make sure that they survive. It's going to be feeding some of the intestinal lining cells so you can actually heal some of that leaky gut and inflammation, make new cells in the digestive tract. And the final step is to help to heal that mucosal lining of the digestive tract. So you have that nice gel between the cells of your intestine and all of the poo going through your digestive system. So with my program, after 6 months, you should have a lot of education about what's going on in your body, how you got your inflammatory condition, whether it's IBS or IBD. We're going to identify what infections or dysbiotic, bad microbes you may be dealing with in the gut. We're going to wipe them out, and then we're going to help to heal and bolster the lining of your intestines so that your symptoms don't come back. We're talking about lasting relief that's going to heal your digestion and make you feel better in only a matter of months. For many of my patients, they may have been dealing with IBS or IBD symptoms for years, even decades. So knowing that there is a way forward and that things can be better can be life-changing for so many of these people. So that's me. I'm Dr. Max at Maximum Wellness, teaching practical ways to live a fuller, healthier life. And if you suffer from IBS or IBD, or you know someone who does, please have them give me a call, contact me. You can see my contact information here in this video, and we'll see if I can get you feeling better. Thanks so much.